Om Shanti, Sister Jayanti.
Om Shanti, Arunaben.
And Sister Jayanti is in Hyderabad today, right?
That's right.
So, gentlemen, I just wanted to begin with a story because Baba talked about mind or wealth in Avyakt, and also in the Sakar Murli, Baba talked about being trustee. And this is a story about Brijmon Bhai. I'm getting an echo, gentlemen. Is it possible to do anything? Okay. So yeah, what happened is that Brijmon Bhai had some surplus funds, some surplus money. And so he asked Baba, what should I do with it? And then Baba said, why don't you invest those funds in a fixed deposit? And there was an employee in that same company who was Brijmon Bhai's relative, who was the broker. So he invested the funds, and then he informed Baba that I've invested the funds. And the name of the company, Jayanti, was Jayanti's Shipping Company. And then what happened, because there was a fraud, a person who was a fraud, so the company started to shake. And so his agent suggested that he take the money out quickly and invest it somewhere else. And in those days, Baba used to read the newspaper. So when Brijmon Bhai went to meet Baba, then Baba immediately asked him what happened to those funds, because Baba had read that the company had gone bankrupt. And so Brijmon Bhai said, well, I withdrew it and I invested it in another company. And so Baba said, okay. But the thing that I liked that Brijmon Bhai said is, Baba told him that when you will inform me, only then will I be able to give you advice. And so exactly as Baba's been saying in recent days that, take advice and be a trustee, and then Baba helps. So welcome, Sister Jayanti. Welcome, everyone. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, very powerful story about Baba. Thank you. And yes, this Murli was about Baba seeing the sparkle and the beauty of purity on each Brahmin child. And of course, it's always number wise, but where there was number one purity, then there was a number one sparkle also. And where there was a little bit less purity, then the sparkle reduced. But also together with that, the happiness seemed to reduce too. The beauty in the face was also reduced. And so Baba saying that purity is the foundation of Brahman life. Purity is the beauty of Brahman life. Purity is the way in which you experience happiness. And purity is the way in which you experience the sweet silence also. And then Baba mentioned how celibacy alone is not enough. Yes, of course, celibacy means purity. But beyond that, not just brahmachari, but Brahma Acharya, the one who's following in the footsteps of the teacher, Brahma Baba, the one who's actually following in the activities of Brahma Baba. And so to what extent are my thoughts, my words, my actions, my relationships following in the footsteps of Brahma Baba? And if I'm following the Father in those footsteps, then yes, it's true, Brahmachari, but also Brahma Acharya. I see Baba as my teacher, and I base everything on how Baba does whatever it is that needs to be done. And so purity is very much connected with all of these factors. And so Baba wants to see that sparkle and that beauty of purity in each one's face. And then Baba went on to talk about how at the present time, instead of just that focus on spiritual endeavor, there's also all the distractions of all the facilities. And yes, there are the facilities of science, but there are also the facilities of Gyan. And it's fine to use facilities, but the important thing is to be able to use them for the purpose that they were meant for in the right way. And that happens when you have spiritual endeavor taking place, sadhana. I think spiritual endeavor is a very loose translation of the word sadhana, but whatever spiritual effort you're making, especially in terms of meditation and yoga. And so that sadhana that's going on within is then going to teach you how to use the facilities that are available in the best possible way for service. And so it's not that Baba's saying, don't use facilities, by all means use them, but let there be this balance. And if there isn't this balance, and you make the facilities your foundation, and if anything happens and those facilities fluctuate, you're not able to have them for whatever reason, then of course your stage is going to fluctuate. And so when you have sadhana, your spiritual effort, your endeavor, then the foundation for you is Baba. And when Baba is your foundation, then there are blessings from Baba, but also blessings from the whole family. And so Baba using these two words, balance and blessings. And in this case, the balance is the balance of remembrance. And then Baba defined that later. But the balance of remembrance, the sadhana, and then also using all the facilities that are available. And then Baba was defining very beautifully what is remembrance. So not just powerful remembrance, but Baba went into it in a lot of detail, how sometimes, and I think everyone can relate to what Baba is saying, sometimes the body is sitting there very quietly, but the mind is racing in one direction, the intellect is being pulled in another direction, and there just is no proper connection with Baba. And your heart is going in a different direction. And so that moment when your thoughts, your feelings, your heart, your love, your intellect, everything is connected with Baba, that is the true connection, the true relationship. And that is the stage which is sadhana. And so on the one side, Baba is saying it's very simple, it's just powerful remembrance, no complications. But of course, the inner effort involved in getting to that stage is not a joke. It's practice and attention. And further on, of course, Baba also mentioned how attention should never get into a state of tension, but attention should be absolutely natural. And when it is that, then that sadhana means that whatever it is you're doing is going to be successful. Otherwise, what happens is that when you're basing whatever you're doing in terms of facilities, then at times there is success, but maybe at times there won't be success. There's no guarantee. And so if there isn't success and then your stage fluctuates, then what happens at that moment? You lose the plot. And so Baba pointing out that it's not the facilities that should be the foundation of your stage or your happiness, but it really should be your own inner effort for sadhana, Baba's remembrance, that should be the basis for your happiness. Then success today or success tomorrow, it's a bit delayed, it's a bit postponed, it's okay. But also there won't be any complaints, because when there's this lack of right foundation of spiritual effort and endeavor, then of course there's always complaints when there isn't success. I wasn't given help, this didn't go well, it didn't happen as I wanted it to happen, nobody was around to support me. A whole story of many, many different things. But I don't realize at that moment that I'm the one who stepped out of line, and I forget that Baba should be my foundation. And then there's always going to be happiness. Without that, there'll always be the winds of change, movement in one direction or another direction all the time. So it was a very, very important passage that Baba was talking about in terms of the sadhana and the sadhan. And then Baba went on to talk about how Baba's looking at 4 different types of service. One is serving the self, and Baba put it categorically first for good reason, because without that, the rest falls apart. So first is service of the self. And the second is world service. And the third is mansa seva. And before I could pause and ask myself the question, oh, what's the difference between world service and mansa service? Baba had already started to explain. And Baba explained that world service can be through words, but mansa seva also has to be there in terms of truly being able to serve the world. And then the fourth was yajna seva. And in yajna seva, of course, Baba looked at 3 things again: mind, body, and wealth. And Baba was again and again talking about how you need 100 marks in each one of the subjects, the 4 different aspects of service, which is really something to think about very deeply. Am I giving as much attention to serving the self as I am to serving others? And in terms of serving others, am I just focused on the externals of service, making plans for programs, meeting people, talking to them about things? And that's great, it's needed. But is there then that attention on mansa seva at the same time, so that whatever is done on the external level is going to be successful and fruitful? Without the mansa seva, it's hit and miss. It may be successful, but maybe it's not. There can be many things that can happen there. And then yajna seva, I always thought of yajna seva as contribution of money or funds. But of course, Baba was saying that there's many aspects of this. And firstly, Baba was talking about how, yes, the contribution of funds for the yajna, but every center is a branch of the yajna. And it's also the yajna kund, the place where the sacrificial fire has been lit. And so the big yajna, the unlimited yajna, of course, is Madhuban. But all around, wherever there are service places, this is also the sacrificial fire that has been created. And in that, again, 2 different aspects. One is the direct donation, of course, but the other is 2 things. One, to what extent am I actually economizing on something? And I think many of you heard the story of this brother Khanna, who had come into Gyan in the 60s, and he surrendered once he had retired. And his family, his sons and his wife gave him permission to do that. And so they were happy and settled, and he came to stay in Madhuban. And he would see that there was charcoal, or there was wood coal or wood being used to light the fire at 2:33 in the morning, so people could have hot water by 3:30. And I remember the boiler that was there at that time, where the Toli department is in Pandav Bhavan, right across that in the middle. Of course, there wasn't the staircase leading up to the dining hall. That didn't exist. But it was just the old kitchen on the ground floor. But right there in the middle of that courtyard, there was the boiler, and we'd see the fire being lit early if we were up, but otherwise the fire would be going, and we'd get our buckets, and they were metal buckets, so they were heavy. And we'd go get our hot water from there, or some kind brother would see us and would help us and carry the bucket to our rooms. Very, very heavy. And he had this idea. He was seeing that there was a lot of coal dust that was lying around, because you pick up the coal and you do what you need to do, but there's all the coal dust. And so what he did was to get cow manure, which anyway in villages in India would be used for a fire, but he got the cow manure and he would pat the coal dust with the manure and make balls out of that. And so these balls were then there to fire the boiler and hot water. And so over the years, can you imagine how much he would have saved the yagya? That's one particular story that I'm aware of where somebody. So hand over to Arunaben. Om Shanti. Arunaben, are you there?
Yesterday she's connecting.
Mm-hmm. Egypt's a bit of an adventure at the moment. And the last few weeks has been adventures for me also, with being in India a couple of times, in Madhuban, and now here. And next week I'll be in Ahmedabad on my return journey home. So that's it. We've got Aruna back with us.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm so sorry. It keeps throwing me out.
We understand. It's fine.
Thank you so much for that. Well, I have a few questions from the week, from people's discussions with us. So let us begin with, somebody was asking, what are the features? When Baba says features, what does he refer to? Face and features.
Baba's really talking about the qualities that are within, that are then visible outside. And so the face will reflect the features of the soul. So it's not how beautiful my eyes are or how straight my nose is, but the features are the aspects of the soul that become visible through the face, through the eyes. Baba actually mentioned the eyes. The eyes of someone with purity will look very, very cool, very gentle, serene. Serene's the right word, nirmal, pure and serene. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And then there was a discussion, Jendiben, that when Baba says have all the four together, mind, intellect, heart, and body, isn't Jendiben, can you hear me now?
Okay, I heard you say mind, intellect, heart, and body, and then it stopped after that.
Yeah, so this is such a elevated stage to attain. I don't think, well, I'm not me, but the discussion was going in this way, that it's a very humongous task, and maybe Baba's asking a lot. I mean, it's a very elevated stage because it's like, you playing bingo and getting the number right, or, shooting